Good afternoon, welcome to today's stream. In the studio tonight. I sound like I don't know, some sort of television program. I half toyed with just having fun and putting an L up on the side of the screen, which if you're not familiar, which you may not be familiar with it, but what an L is these shopping channels that have a price and things and details across the bottom. That's an L shape. That's where the L comes from. Dear. So I need I've only just got on the stream. I'm going to just have to disappear a moment because I've just forgotten the bracelet which I was going to work on tonight. So I should be back in a moment. And I'm back. Sorry about that. And I just realised I've also forgotten to change my glasses. So we're going to work on that tonight, at least initially, before we carry on working on the nice glittery one. And we'll see how I've changed the lighting a little bit, as you can probably see on my face. I don't know quite how that's going to work, or whether or not I'm going to enjoy having that lighting, so we'll see. It's a bit bright, but we shall see how it goes. Yeah, then. So this wants to be about 8 or so inches long. Thereabouts, so I'll go about another 2 inches to add to that. So I want some of these. Is it those? No, it's not those. I need some different rings for those. Yep, I think it's these. Yep, it is. So just get a few out. If let go, thank you. So we'll get some of these rings out. They're the right ones. No, they're not the right ones. The right size but not the right colour, and it's not those. At least I thought they were the right size. Are they the same size? I'll tell you what we do at that point if we can't tell. I have a very useful tool for doing this, because sometimes it's really awkward trying to tell what rings it is that I've got in a particular place. I have one of these, which is a micrometer, and with these I can measure the rings quite accurately. So I'll start here. We can measure the thickness of the wire, which is 1.2 millimeters, and then I can measure the diameter of the internal diameter, if I can get other things out of the way. and that's 5mm. Okay, so internal diameter is 5mm, rings is 1.2, which surprisingly means it's not these. And what it probably means is that they are, yes, they're 5mm. Did I say 5mm? I did indeed say 5mm. 5mm, 1.2mm. Okay, so it's not those either. So now I go to my big box. Boom, 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 boom. Royal blue. Not those. Okay, now I'm puzzled. Because I'm kind of wondering what they are. Those. Okay. Found what they are. But I don't have a lot of them left, which means I hope I've got enough. Fluffy Twiglet, good evening. Welcome to the studio this evening. Dear, I just had a bit of a problem working out what size rings I was using for this bracelet I'm just going to finish off. And is that have I got a broken one in there? Oh, maybe. And I couldn't find the exact ring size, so that's all the rings I have. So if that isn't enough to finish this, tough. Now then. Right, so that's and yeah, okay. This needs to be about 8 inches long. I think that's how long I made the one last night. So about another 2 inches. So we will just see. Now I have to remember how to do this. Which is going to be interesting, trying to remember how to do it. This weave is called a box weave. It's really not that difficult to do. It's really not that difficult to do when you are using just normal rings. When it becomes difficult to do is when you're doing this in using these flexible rings, because then you can't, obviously, as I mentioned before, you can't open a flexible ring. So I'm actually thinking it's better to do it from this end here, like that, because then I can just slip a ring through and I can put 2 of these over the top. That way I don't have to start squeezing them through like I was trying to do the other night. And let me adjust that there, because that's going to be roughly where I hold it, so I don't want to I don't want to be off camera most of the time, which I have a habit of doing, of course. Okay, so that's one. If I bring those down there, you can see what I'm working with at the same time as I do. There we go. Put that through there, those two through there. Be careful that I don't intertwine the two rings, which I nearly did. The two rings are going to go side by side, not wrapped through one another, which is what I almost did there. That's a completely different weave, which we're not working on at the moment, not tonight anyway. Nailing that. Some of these are opened from the last time when I was doing this, so that saved me some time this evening. One, two. Maybe I should have done this in black and yellow, then it'd have looked like a wasp or something. Although I don't think I'd have enjoyed making that one then if that had been the case, because I'd hate wasps. So I trust you've had a good day, Fluffy Twiglet. It's been a relatively warm day over here in Yorkshire, although it's also been really humid as well, so it's kind of been a little bit unpleasant because of that, but can't have everything. We either complain it's too cold or we complain it's too hot. One of these days we'll make our mind up, or it'll be a perfect day. But if it is a perfect day, we'll probably just find something else to complain about. One of the nice things about these yellow rings is, in kind of a way, is they're made out of neoprene, so they're obviously stretchy, but they tend to hold the rings in place on this particular weave, which makes it a little bit easier. A slightly lazy day if you're honest, and if you're not honest, it was an extremely lazy day. Yeah. I went out and had lunch with some family today, which was really quite nice, and then I spent the rest of the day reading instruction manuals for shopping carts. Right, so now I'm going to have to open some more rings in a moment. This is the last open ring I've got. Two. Okay, but I don't have that many left, so it's not going to take long to open these. And that one's already open. That one I won't bother with, it's closed, but in any case I only need an odd number. So that final ring can stay closed. It might come in useful in the future. Links Live! Hi, welcome to the studio this evening. It's nice of you to drop in. I trust you are doing well and enjoying what for me is a Sunday evening. Just bear with me a second, guys. Apologise for that. A little bit of a computer support problem. More a case of the Daily Mail website is terrible. It crashes browsers, it does weird things with browsers, it dynamically changes its page as you're reading. It's a horrible website to go to. And it's about 16 miles long as well, which is probably so they can stuff loads of adverts on it. What kind of fun? Stankill or Stankgill 1 2 3 4. I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. What kind of bracelet is this? Okay, this bracelet is let me just this bracelet is made using a chainmail weave called box. And in this particular case it's a rectangular box. Sorry, it's a rectangular box because it's obviously it's rectangular. It's wider that way than that way, but this is also made with stretchy rings, so it goes like that. And what that means is that I'll, when it's the right length, which it will be shortly because I've only got a limited number of rings left. In fact, I've reached the limit of the number of rings. I'll join the two ends together and it'll be a stretchy bracelet. So it's about to get its two ends joined together, which is going to be fun while I try and work out how to do that. Yeah, okay, I can do another pair of blue rings and then we join then it will join it up to the other side. I said these rings were stretchy, they're just shot across the desk somewhere. Reaper 7, good evening. Welcome to the studio. And slurp it up. There is no requirement or need at all to swear. What am I doing here? I didn't want to do that, so I will open these two rings. I've got hold of the wrong end of this. Make another one. I will be making another bracelet, but might I suggest you are a bit more polite about saying so. Indeed they are. The yellow ones, well they're not rubber actually, neoprene. Same idea though. You know, you're close enough, but it's actually a different material. I was working on this end of the nail in. Split those two apart, take that, put that through there. Now then, this is where I have to work out exactly how to do this. I have actually never ever joined the two of these together, so that will want to go How does that pick up that? Yeah, this is going. This is the fun bit now, so to speak. I'm trying to work out how this goes together. And it will potentially go together a bit easier if these rubber, and I'm calling them rubber now, rings, stay where they're supposed to be. So that goes like that. That has got to go. Ah, yes, okay, I think I see. I think I see what I am trying to do here. and try is the operative word. So that has to go like that. I think like that. That looks right. That took a bit of working out. Now all I've got to do is do the same thing again on the other side. So that goes through those. Pick up the two rings that I put on there. It's going to come in over there. Normally when you're doing this with solid rings, of course, you don't actually have this problem of trying to join them. Well, you could have the problem of joining them together if you're doing it like a bangle style. So you're making a big, well, it won't be stretchy, but a big one that you'd sort of slip over your wrist and was like a bangle. But the danger is, because it's big enough to slip over your wrist, that you could slip over your wrist. So normally these sorts of things would have a clasp on it, and they'd be slightly smaller so they won't go over your knuckles. But there we go, that one's complete. It's a little bit small for me, I think. Maybe not. It goes over my wrist a lot easier than it did the other one did last night. So there we go. One complete rectangular box stretchy bracelet. VKB 2105. Welcome to the studio this evening. So we've got that one done. Now what we're going to do is carry on with one that we started last night, which was this one, minus the cat hair. So I have got one ring left, literally one ring left. That's all I've got there, so it's there, one ring left. I'm going to put that back in this box just for the moment so I don't forget which it is. Because I'll need to order some more of those, because they're the ideal size for this ring, for the yellow, to make that box chain. And I've also got some nice red and green as well to go. I've put them somewhere where you can't see them. So red and green. They're stretchy rings as well. Now, somewhere in there is a couple of yellow ones which I'll find a little bit later. Right, so let me clear the desk a little. So, Swarovski Crystal, and that's quite a hard thing to say. So we've got some clear crystals there, and we have some green crystals. and I know you probably can't see those for a second, so I will move the camera in a minute. There we go. And then I was going to say silver. These are silver coloured rings, so they're not actual silver, they're aluminium rings which have been anodized a silver colour. Although I could use silver, actual silver rings, but I don't have any. And potentially, if I did, actually, they'd look a little bit. They'd be a little bit finer wire, so they'd look a little bit more dainty than this. But so, as with most jump rings, I need to open these, and as you can see, they're being quite small, they're a little bit fiddly. And I am on camera, yes. So for each layer, or it's a bit like a ladder, I need 4 large rings, 4 small rings. So, but what I'm going to do, I think, is to speed things up a little bit. What I was doing last night is creating one row and then joining it to the bracelet, and then creating another row and joining it to the bracelet. What I'm going to do is create, just to do it differently tonight, create 3 rows and then join all 3 to the bracelet. So I need 12 open rings. To be able to do that. Nine, 10, 11 and 12. Well, let's keep hold of that one. So there's a little tiny loop on the back of each of these crystals which needs to be threaded over these rings, and then the rings closed. So that's the first one on, but what I've now got to do is to take hold of that and thread another ring through that loop on the back of the crystal. And there's only just enough space in that loop to do it. And before I close that loop, which is what I was just about to do, I have to remember to put another crystal on. This time it's a green one. Okay. Can't get it on at the second because these pliers are in the way, so I just need to move them to one side. And then, having put that green ring on, I have to put another ring through the green one. So I'm creating a chain basically, which goes ring white crystal, ring green crystal, ring white crystal, and then a final ring. And I've just put a green one on when I wanted to put a white one on. Then, as I mentioned, a final ring. And if you're sitting there thinking that needs patience, well, I might sort of slightly agree with you, not much actually, but wait while you get to see me working with the smaller rings. So that's what's called a unit, which is one sort of complete set ready to go on the bracelet, and I'll do another two first. You know what, you're going to see me look a little bit daft now, because it's a bit warm here in the studio, so I'm going to put a headband on. So there you go, and now look completely silly, but I'm more comfortable, so I don't care if I look silly. And if I look silly, then tennis players must look even dafter because they wear them as well. Oh dear. Kneeling. Next unit. So come back on camera and we'll go with, that's green. How on earth did these get mixed up? That's green. Okay, that's a white crystal. Yep. Now I can put a green one on. There we go. Steve-O 76 2002. I always have a fun laugh with that one. I'm doing well, thank you very much. And how are you doing? How's your new job going? I noticed you started posting videos of your journey to work. I haven't looked at any yet, but I did notice them going up on YouTube. This camera isn't actually focused on what I'm doing, is it? It's focused on the desktop, so let me refocus that in a second. Just get hold of that. Like 9 hours in the gym. I can kind of understand that, yes. There we go. That's focused on the tools. So what no, I don't want that way. I'm going to take that off. As I say, I haven't listened to any. So is it a drive time rant? Is it while you're driving down the motorway, commenting on other people, other people's driving? Okay. So what I just did there was no, it's the green one that's on wrong. I'd put the this ring through, and it would have resulted in the the white crystal. It would have resulted in the white crystal if it hadn't dropped off. Now then, being on the wrong side. But this other white crystal is on the wrong side, so I've got to take one of these off and rethread it. So we'll take this one off at the end. What I'm going to do is turn the crystal over and thread it through that way, so then all three will actually be on the same side, which is probably a good idea. Yeah, that's right. Okay. That reminds me, I've got one to catch up with on of your farming sim introduction videos. I take it, since I've seen you streaming a couple of times in the middle of the week, that your weekend is in the middle of the week rather than being at the weekend. Two. For those of you that don't know, and it might not be obvious, Steve out there is streams quite a few things. He's sort of fairly, shall we say, fairly well known for streaming Farming Simulator and Euro Truck Simulator, but he does stream one or two other first person shooter games as well. Or did. He's got a little bit less time these days to do that, but and also YouTube videos, as he's just mentioned. So definitely worth checking out, both in Twitch and in YouTube. Yeah, so you go live during the week, and unfortunately I was working, so I was working needing to concentrate as opposed to working where I can have a video on, so I didn't actually watch, but yeah, I'm enjoying doing this, but it's fiddly. But the result at the end of it, hopefully, is going to be well worth all the fiddliness that it's taken to produce it. I hadn't realised you disappeared, Fluffy Twiglet. Make sure I get this last ring through properly. Got it. There we go. Now then, if you thought these rings that I'm working with were small, then you're going to be really surprised at these, which are about half the size. So now I've got to open 12 of these. Now these are almost to the point where I'm thinking what I should do is move the magnifying glass that I've got behind me over to start to look at these. Either that or zoom the camera in really well and start looking at them on the screen. Use the camera as a microscope. 2, 3. Well, what I'm doing when I'm going older and with my fingers is just moving it around so I can actually grasp them with the pliers in the right place, so that I can open the ring up wide enough to take for it to pass through one of the other rings. They have a little gap when they're made. That's just naturally a way of the way in which they're made, but so they're not sort of full circles when they're made. 2, 4, 6, 7. They're sort of slightly offset at the two ends from each other. So when you do this, you either open them to allow them to be fed through other rings, or you close them up so they appear to be a full single circle. And sometimes you do that when you start because you don't, it's easier to do them if you can close them up before you start, as I do on some of the weaves that I do. It's a lot easier to do it when you're only dealing with one ring in a pair of pliers than when you're dealing with the ring actually on the bracelet itself or necklace, because then it's a bit more fiddly. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, and this is 12. So you tend to close them if you can before you start. Now then, I have to take this which is an extremely flexible set of bands, and then I have to join this onto the end of it. And I have to do it using these little tiny rings that you've just seen me open. So and I have to make sure I get this the right way around. It wants to be like that. Okay, there we go. Because if I don't, then the whole row will be backwards, which of course is not what you want. Now yesterday this was a heck of a lot harder because there was literally nothing to hold on to. Now that there's a fair length of bracelet formed, it's a bit easier to do this. Because I can hold on to this and I can lay it out on my finger, and I can see what I'm trying to do. Yesterday it was real fun, shall we say. Sorry, I'm not keeping up with chat. I'm busy concentrating on what I'm doing. So yeah, headband. Well, keeps my brains in. Despite the fact that I have a tennis racket, I'm terrible at tennis, and I haven't actually attempted to play it for about 40 years. Well, actually not that long, but quite a long time. I can get it over the net, but quite often the problem is whilst I do get it over the net, I get it over the next net as well, which, if you're familiar with tennis courts, they usually have a big net right around the outside. I have a tendency to put it over that one as well. Ninja lurking. Well, I don't think you've succeeded very much in ninja lurking, because we know that you're lurking. And then the final ring, which connects the bottom pair together. Because these rings are so small, it's really hard to actually grasp them with the pliers, and in a way that you don't actually obstruct the opening, and which stops you getting the rings actually in position. No, but you're quite welcome to tell it, provided it's clean, fluffy twiddler. Right, let's see if I can get the next one in place. Let's start at the top again. And the other one thing about telling jokes on Twitch is chat is not the easiest way to get a punchline in. Timing is terrible, even for you guys typing. Oh, well, that's not bad. Which actually just made me think of one, which is I could tell you a joke about bath time, but it would break my rules about being a dirty joke. I wonder how many kids watching tennis for the first time wonder why nobody ever wonders why the umpires are always thirsty. Okay, let's see if we can do this next unit. I'm sort of getting the hang of it, which makes it a bit easier once you have done it a couple of times, in terms of, you know, made whatever it is of this stuff. It starts to get easier because you can't, obviously, you know what you're doing, and things like just connecting this ring on here, I sort of very quickly learned how to put that separate unit on, making sure it goes on the right way. So they go on almost back to back, and then you turn it around, and because if you get this extra unit on the other way, you have to take it off, obviously. So actually, whilst I am making this one, I haven't got the website up. I was hoping actually to have the website up and working this week. I may or may not achieve that, especially now that I am having to make a change to what I intended to do on it. But as the subject reminded me yesterday, the jewellery stuff like this, I will say is for sale if anybody's interested in stuff. The pieces like this one itself isn't, because this is a present for my wife, but if you wanted one of these, I would certainly be quite happy to make one. So at the moment, until I get the website up and running, if anybody is interested, just drop a Twitch private message to me, and we can talk about it. So that's any of the jewellery that you might have seen, and if anybody wants to see some samples of what I've already done, I don't mind showing off again. And of course you've seen one of the stretchy ones done. So there we go, that's now a little bit longer, and that's kind of what it'll look like when it's been worn. It'll be sort of stretched out like that, as opposed to all crunched together. I'm not sure which one of you was having fun, but thank you. Right, so I've got to make some more of these sort of units up. So again, we're back now to opening rings. So let's do another three at a time again. So I want 12 of these. It's 5, 6. You see, I keep proving I can count. And you're equally opening some of these rings, sometimes I'm proving that I can't count when I end up having one or two short at the end. Now fighting between you now to play with the kiddies. 2, 4, 6, 8. 9. 10. 11. 12. I'll keep hold of that one in my hand. I don't make these rings myself. I buy them ready-made, But one of the and it's kind of a thought that never really occurred to me, but I was watching a YouTube video about how rings like this are made, and one of the things that surprised me when I watched it, and it shouldn't have done, because doing electronics, I work with wire all the time, but it's surprising when these rings are made out of wire and then they're wound onto a tube, basically, and what they call a mandrel, to create the circle, and then they after that they're slid off that, and these particular ones are cut with a saw to create a nice clean edge. But the thing which kind of surprised me, and I say shouldn't have done really, is just how flexible the wire is when it's in a long length. It kind of is very easily bent and things like that, but once it's formed into a circle in a little ring like this, they're actually quite difficult to bend, which seems really odd. But I mean, I'm not using super muscles or anything like this to close them, but compare it to sort of just taking a piece of wire and just sort of bending it in between your fingers. You do that very easily, and yet if you try to open or close one of these rings with your fingers, you probably find you can't do it. It's one of those weird phenomena. Mind you, I said you don't need a lot of strength, and that's another unit done. Actually, it will be in a minute when I just make sure that's closed properly. There we go. I say you don't need a lot of strength. I'm sure I've got a bracelet made out like this somewhere, but I'm not sure. This is titanium. The rings are titanium rings. They do take a fair bit of effort to close. They are really really strong rings. I'm not sure there are any whether stainless steel or the steel like Mr. Boombati uses, for example, is easy to close or not, but these things take a fair bit of effort. Arc the effing awesome. Welcome, good evening to the studio this evening. Labu Zeloof. Hi, welcome also to the studio this evening. Good old chain stuff. Yes, chain with crystals. So, sparkly chain. Stretchy chain. Really strong titanium chain. Oh dear. Actually, what? Time flies when you're having fun, as they say. Which brings to mind the old computer. There's a saying about that's supposed to be difficult for computers who understand sort of language and syntax, and that is, time flies like an arrow, fruit flies like a banana. So you see, you don't have to get some very esoteric stuff on this channel. Aha, you did not escape. Valiant try, but you didn't escape. It's only just enough space on the back of these crystals for two of these rings to go through. Ah, good. Do you ever stream it? Arc the effing awesome. And yeah, working with the neoprene rings is interesting. Of course, because you know they're not a split ring, you can't split them. So you gotta use them in. You gotta think ahead quite a bit. And when it came to closing this into a, it didn't have to take me a bit of working out just how to do that. And I've just closed this ring without putting another crystal on it. Now somewhere in here, it's there. Because I can't see the join. Oh dear, talking too much you see, and forgetting to. I either forget to put a crystal on, or if I was weaving with rings, I'd be forgetting to put the next ring on. With rings, it's not quite so bad because you can just use an open ring, but can't do that with these. Turn it over so I don't turn the thing upside down. There we go. Okay. Well, if you you already stream, then it's just a matter of doing a different subject. I'm always interested in watching other creative streamers. If you were streaming creative stuff more often, at the effing awesome, I'd probably you'd probably find me watching you. Especially physical stuff. I like watching the physical artists as opposed to the digital artists more. Mainly because there's a lot of digital artists, but I find physical crafts really fascinating to watch. I am nothing against digital artists. I do that myself, so but I don't stream that. So you know, I'm not against them. It's just I've only got limited time to watch, and if I do have time to watch, and Steve-O out there is streaming, I'll probably be watching him or a couple of other streamers. So I don't very often get much chance. So there's another unit. Now, well, obviously, I guess I've got more of silver or clear crystals than I have green crystals. I say obvious because doing silver or clear, green, clear in a line kind of probably does imply that I have more of the clear ones. But I've got 20. I have 29 green. I think it's 29 green. Yeah. 29 green crystals. Why did I do that? Dear. So I'm not. I would have had 30, but one of them's broken. So I'm hoping that this is going to be long enough. I think it's going to be long enough when I've got if I need to use all of them, but I'm not actually sure at this stage. I could sit down and work it out, but it's almost as much fun to actually just do it and find out. I'm fairly convinced I will have enough to create the right length, but right. Now I want a green crystal on. Yeah, having a well. I mean, I started streaming the crafts with just the one camera, so I didn't have a face cam when I started, and I really well, I'm saving, shall we say, for a second camera. This one's that you're looking at me with is an old is an old Microsoft type webcam. Resolution isn't that good, and it's not got fantastic controls on it, so but it's actually off my works machine. I've borrowed it from my works machine because I don't actually do much video conferencing on there at the moment, so it's sat over here. It gets more use doing this. So I'm ensuring my works computing equipment is kept in tip-top order, you see. Keep making sure it works. Yeah, that's what this is. One of the life cam series, the face cam. It's one of the earlier. It's about 2 years old now. I'm off stream window again, aren't I? The main cameras are one of the Logitech 920s, HD cam. It's a really I was going to say it's a really nice cam, but apart from it has it does have an annoying feature, shall we say, which is easy to the problem is easy to illustrate. Those rings and those rings are not the same colour. These are royal blue, these are a deep purple. And purple always shows up with blue on this. Yeah, you know by now, Fluffy Twiggler. Purple always shows up blue. That's the left. It's actually purple, is that? It's not blue. And I can't actually show you because I can't actually get the camera to show the purple. There's at least a couple of other streamers that I've come across that with the same camera have exactly the same problem. See what happens doing the pipe cleaner sculpting or modelling. His purple pipe cleaners show up blue, exactly the same. I don't know what it is. It's not light, it's not colour balance or anything. Well, it doesn't appear to be colour balance. There's not a lot of options to adjust colour balance, but yeah, you can play about with all the parameters, but I can't get them to show purple at all. And even some other colours shift a little bit in the same sort of way. It just seems to be a little bit more somehow sensitive to the blue in things like the purple, and just ignores the red. Right. Oops. No. Before I do that, before I pick that up, I need to open 12 of these little tiny rings. So I don't know, mind you, I don't know whether sort of a video camera as opposed to a webcam would have the same problem. I don't know if it's the camera sensors or it's something in the electronics that's doing it, or the video processing. But to be honest, kind of can't really afford to go and buy a video camera or an SLR with video output to try it. They're a bit pricey. And whilst I do actually have an old SLR, it's a film-based SLR, not a digital one, so I can't try that. And I don't particularly want to buy an SLR. I don't use them these days. The little tiny compact cameras are as good for most of the photography that I do. I'm not saying they, you know, professional SLRs aren't good, but I don't carry a bulky camera with me these days. Something that I can slip in my pocket I'm more likely to take photographs with than having to get an SLR out, put a lens on it and take your picture. You know, makes for great spontaneous shots when you have to do that. 2, 4, 6, 8. I can't count, can I? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. $11. $12. And I'll put it down and pick it up again. I don't know. Let's have a look and see. They're more. These particular ones are more on the blue side than those, but yeah, that sort of thing. Fluffy twiglet. Let's see if I can find. It's more that one. Yeah, that's the. So you see what I mean by it being a real rich purple colour. Although, having said which, the next batch of purple rings I buy may well turn out to be the colour that you first posted there, Fluffy Twiglet. That's unfortunately the case, because anodizing is a dyeing. It's a process of using dye. If the dye mixture is slightly different, or you know the temperatures are slightly different, or it's, you know, the length of time they're in the dye is slightly different, you get a slightly different shade. And that can be a little bit annoying sometimes. And it's like everything else. If I want to make a bracelet, I kind of have to, or a necklace for example, I kind of have to make sure that I've got enough in one batch to make it completely, because the next batch of colour ring I buy may be a completely different shade. Now for some bracelets that doesn't matter, but for others it does stand out. Somewhat terrible. Yeah, they do. Yeah, I think. I mean, that's the one nice thing about aluminium, anodized aluminium. These rings is they're all a beautiful colour. They're really. I mean, even the white, which is daft. Apart from the white, they're all really shiny and sparkly and got very vivid colours, even if those colours do differ slightly. Now, why can I not bend this ring? Okay, one more unit on the end. Well, it was there from the start. I actually can't remember what the stream title is at the moment. Dear. What did I call the stream title? Oh, right, yeah. Well, yeah, the reason for the ish is kind of it's been that way in stream as well occasionally, and when I've talked to a lot of people about what I do, if the first thing I say is chainmail, then everybody thinks of making armour, and this is this is nothing like armour, but if I just say jewellery making and on the stream title, then people who like stuff being done with rings, chainmail, just don't bother looking because they don't know what it is. Well, that's an assumption I'm making. So that's kind of why I sort of said that. But I kind of even don't really think this is kind of like just putting jump ring. This particular one, although I'm sort of weaving, I don't know. It's really hard to find an appropriate title sometimes. It's also really hard sometimes to keep in frame. There we go. It's not as late as I thought it was. I thought it was later than it is. Okay, so there we go so far. So if I was to put that on a wrist, I know it's not meant for me, and well, you never know. I suppose I could wear it, but it'll be better once I get the fastenings on the end. You see how it bunches up. When we get the fastenings on the end, it'll actually hold the mesh open at the ends, and it won't do that. But so, what do you think about this then, as a bracelet for as a present for a special person? Right. More units. More units, Captain. Thank you very much, Fluffy Twiglet. Let's do another 3. If I can find the edge, the corner, the opening on this ring. There we go. One. Now you're probably getting an idea why, unfortunately I guess, handmade jewellery sometimes is relatively expensive. Compared to some of the stuff you can buy in shops, which is machine made. And it's just down purely to the time it takes to do it. You've sort of seen I'm not hanging about really doing this. It's okay, I'll stop occasionally and show you and chat, but 2, 4, 6, 7. Eight. One more. I do actually have a ring that you can use for opening these rings. You're supposed to pull that on, and then you can just put the ring in and with a pair of tweezers and twist. And it's supposed to be quicker, but actually I find using these pliers as quick. So I've never actually used that yet. Oh well, I've tried it, but and then found I prefer just using the pliers. But these soft handled, well, relatively soft, ergonomic handled pliers are worth buying if you're interested in doing this sort of thing. It's worth buying these sort of chunky handled pliers if you like, which have a relatively soft spring on them than things like this. Those handles, I got these first, and after about 2 hours of using it, my hands were sore, and part of it was the springs in here were too strong, which is why one of them's bent back. Which weakens it just nicely, but just because there's no padding on the handles, and it sort of just makes the all insides of your hands so if you're ever interested in doing this sort of thing, these are worth, well, they're not actually much different in price to be honest, but the padded handle ones are worth the investment. I think they're about 50p more, something like that, UK pounds wise. I'm not actually sure whether I prefer these or the straight jawed ones at the moment. I've been using and I naturally pick these up in preference to these for my left hand. So I'm not quite sure yet whether I like them or not. But they do have the advantage that they are parallel jaws, so they do grip the rings a little bit better and a bit more safely. Which for my left hand, which isn't quite as coordinated as I'm a right-handed person, it's quite a good idea. Okay, Fluffy Twiggler, thank you very much for dropping in. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow. We're not going to finish this on tonight's stream, so we will be doing it tomorrow. So you will hopefully get to see it finished. That's another unit. That ring hasn't closed properly. As I mentioned, if you're not, excuse me guys if you've heard it before, but these rings, as I say, are when they're made, they're cut with a saw, which is actually the best way of doing it, but it does leave a very slight gap. So when these are closed up, it's not just a matter of twisting them to line up with each other, it's also pushing them together a little bit just to close up the gap. And you get some time, well, what you get most of the time with this wire, and you'll actually see me, I'll demonstrate now, is I twist backwards and forwards whilst I'm sort of pushing as well to close that gap. And what I'm doing in doing that is the metal has a memory. It's been sat in one position for a long time. It kind of remembers that. So if you bend it and sort of, like with these rings, twist it slightly and then twist it and put it into a new position, it has a tendency to want to go back to the old position, which means that quite often, once you've closed one of these rings, if you come back in an hour, or sometimes less, but if you come back in an hour, what you sometimes find is the ring's opened again, or it's opened slightly, not a lot, just slightly, just enough to be sort of misaligned or to have a larger gap than you remember it being. And what's happened is the metal has relaxed back into its old position. So what twisting it backwards and forwards does is sort of helps reset that memory. It also does something called work hardening, which means when you stop twisting it, it gets stiffer and therefore wants to stay exactly where it is as well. But it's something that as a chainmail weaver, you kind of have to bear in mind is to try and overcome that memory effect. And sometimes afterwards you have to actually go back through the bracelet or whatever it is and sometimes close up one or two of the larger gaps that have appeared. So if anybody ever buys chainmail jewellery like this and you see very slight gaps, it's not a lack of quality. It's a property of the metal. But generally speaking, little small misalignments aren't they're not detrimental to whatever the pieces that you've got. What I look for, if you like, and I'm sure other chainmail people do, is to make sure that you the bracelet won't scratch you, basically. You won't feel it sharp, and there's not sort of large discrepancies. A ring like that wouldn't be acceptable. It's open too much. It would fall apart. But slightly open rings are okay. As the more open they get, the more likely to scratch you and to catch on things and things like that. So and you can see sometimes people like Mr. Boombati, for example, has been doing this sort of thing for a long time. He'll if you watch him in his broadcasts, you'll sometimes see him go pick up a ring that's sort of halfway down the weave and just straighten it back out again because it's one that's relaxed back. We've almost finished this particular unit here, and I almost forgot to put a white crystal on. I'll be telling you guys to remind me, but by the time the chat's caught up with or the stream delays caught up with where I'm at, I'll have finished it. Now if we sort of 5-second chat delays, then it wouldn't be so bad. Unfortunately we don't. Alright, so that's, as soon as I close this ring, that's that unit complete. There's one advantage with having a relatively bright light there, is when I hold it like this I can see if there's a gap between in that closure, which is quite good. Right, little ring time again. 12 of these. Yeah, one made a bid for escape but didn't get very far. If you're watching and you've got a question, feel free to drop it into chat. I don't mind answering relevant questions. Yeah. About this or any of the other art forms that I do, because those of you who may watch regularly will know that this is just one of the art stroke crafting things that I do. I do 4 others in addition to this. So I do pyrography, which is creating images using a heated implement on wood. I do some relief carving, which is taking that same sort of wood and cutting it with chisels to create sculptures. That's 8. I also do punchcraft, which is kind of like a miniature rug making. You use a large needle to push loops of thread through material to create a carpet effect, and that creates the picture. I also do 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Under 2 of these small ones. I also do what's it, scraper board, which is clay spread on a backing board and then coated with black Indian ink. And then what you do with that is you use a sharp blade, like a scalpel or specially made tools, and scrape the Indian ink off, revealing the white plaster underneath. There's clay underneath, and you form your image from the scratches as to how far apart, how deep they are, that sort of thing. Via Reaper, good evening back, welcome. Which is kind of an odd syntax. Yeah, I think that's, I've got a feeling that's all that I do. I think I said 4 other things there. I have a habit of being really difficult trying to remember exactly how many, exactly what it is that I do. I always seem to miss one out. I'm not sure if I did this time or not. Semerix, good evening. Neither, assuming you're talking about the metal. These rings are made out of aluminium, and then they are anodized, in this particular case with a silver dye, so they look bright shiny silver. There's no particular reason why I couldn't use pure, well, I say pure silver. Silver's never used pure. The closest you generally get to pure silver is sterling silver, which is 925 parts per thousand of silver. But as you have identified, the rings you can get rings in silver, in steel, titanium, niobium, neoprene, as well as aluminium. Copper is often used as well. But I've not tried any silver yet. It is something I want to do for myself at some point in the future, is make myself a sterling silver bracelet. Won't look like this, but probably something like a half Persian 4-in-1, which I've got one in here somewhere. Let's have a look. Yeah, a 4-in-1 looks like that, half Persian 4-in-1. So it's, you know, this size, it's quite a chunky sort of but rectangular ring bracelet. So whilst this one isn't sterling silver, this is sort of blue and pink. You know, if you can imagine that in sterling silver, that's one I'd quite like to make for myself. But sterling silver, he's not cheap, so I've got to save up to be able to do that. And having said which, you might think, you know, aluminium actually is about the cheapest rings to buy, other than I think probably steel ones. But generally speaking, steel ones are bigger. But you know, I say cheap, but that's a relative. You know, when you cheap compared to titanium, for example. But they still add up. I think roughly, the larger these silver coloured rings that I'm using, they're close to about between 4 and 5p each to buy. So you know, it soon adds up when a bracelet probably takes, depending on the bracelet, but you know, and the size of the rings, but you know, you can easily take 50-60 rings easily to make a bracelet. Oops, there's it. Now let me take a look at that ring. No, that's clean. Good. Okay. Is it? No, it's not. Let's get rid of that ring. I think I'll look at it in daylight, maybe. Probably just throw it away. So I've probably just thrown away about 4p's worth of ring, but the reason for that is you saw the pliers slip, and I think I probably scratched the ring. Normally if you do that, you'll hear the click as the pliers snap shut, but in this particular case it just slipped around, and I probably just scraped off the anodizing. So rather than mess about, just throw that ring away and get a new one out. That's because I wasn't concentrating, you see. What I was trying to do was add up how many rings there might be in a necklace, for example. And this, let me put that down for a second. This necklace has got over 200 rings in it. I think 214 off the top of my head, but with the copper rings, copper, if it's used on its own, then generally speaking they will actually probably artificially develop a patina on it, so you get like an antique copper sort of look. You don't often get copper as copper. What they'll usually do then is apply enamel, which is like a powdered glass, which is fused and actually turned into glass. So they'll use like red, well, coloured glass basically. They'll coat the copper in coloured glass, which protects the copper so it doesn't develop anything, and because it's glass, it's pretty unreactive. I need another small ring before I go any further. So that's what they usually do with copper. So copper is just the core of the ring, just like here, if you like, aluminium's the core of the ring, and then it's got an anodized coating. Same with like the titanium. It's an anodized coating on top. And if you get things like well, gold plating, for example, is a similar sort of thing. That's often done on copper as well, gold and silver plating. I need to just open this ring I just got out, but I don't use gold and silver plated material, because my wife is one of a relatively unusual group of people, I understand, but her skin oils actually dissolve gold and silver. So if I take a silver plated or a gold plated item, like a clasp for example, or a ring, within a couple of hours her skin oils have taken the gold off, and it's reverted back to its copper. Now for something like a clasp, sometimes that can look quite nice, but if it was intended to be silver or gold, of course it's not very nice. I don't use silver or gold plating items for that reason. I don't know if anybody else has that problem, but that's why the silver clasps I've got are all sterling silver, and the gold and the rose gold is what they call filled gold, which is kind of like it's not like gold. Well, it is like gold plating in that it's metal like copper, or bronze actually, I think is what they use, which is then coated in either gold or rose gold, but it's a heck of a lot thicker than gold plating, and it's generally made in a mechanical way. So they actually sandwich, they take a big piece of gold, if you like, and a big piece of bronze, and slap them together and pass them through rollers, so they get squeezed together and thinner and thinner and thinner. And so if you imagine sort of like gold plating would be at a giant scale. Gold plating might be the thickness of a human hair on something, then filled gold would be about an inch thick. It's that sort of difference in thickness. Now I've never I don't actually know what the relative ones are. It's just an illustration for demonstration purposes, shall we say. But it is that sort of large difference, and my wife's now been wearing like clasps with filled gold for several weeks, almost non-stop, and you can't tell. There's no visible effect. All the ones that I'm using are saw cut ceramics, but they don't have to be, and that is something, if you buy rings, that you ideally want to check. I mean, there's nothing. Okay, I was about to say there's nothing wrong with machine cut. What machine cut basically means, for those that might not know, is the wire is cut with essentially with a guillotine. Now that might be like a pair of hand cutters, or it may be a machine, but essentially it's sort of it's like a knife going through the metal, and you know, a knife has got a V-shaped cutting blade, if you like, and if you squeeze metal through with a knife-shaped blade, you get like a V on the metal wire when you've cut through it. So what happens when you do that is, and you put two sides of a ring together, is it's a bit like putting your fingers together. You've got this V shape in the middle, and it sort of, you know, you can see it if you like, because if it's an anodized ring, let's say I've got a you know, bright coloured rings like this, that V shape is generally the underlying metal colour, so like silver, without those purple rings, for example, and the rest would be purple. It kind of shows up, and also the act of squeezing the metal to cut it creates like a sharp corners, which also can scratch and be a bit messy. So the better ones are saw cut, and they literally use a very, very fine saw and cut straight down, and the edges are really clean. And what you can do then is you can close them up, close that gap in the ring up so accurately that the gap is almost invisible. In fact, I'll say almost. If I've ever wanted to take some of mine apart to open them up, I have spent 5 minutes going around the ring looking for that join to be able to split it, and sometimes I can't even feel it. But you can use machine cut rings. Obviously the cheaper are machine cut rings, because a machine can do thousands at a time. It can just keep going basically. But machine cut also refers to hand cut with big cutters as well. So depending on whether they're handmade rings or machine made rings. For this sort of, for jewellery making, I would sort of highly suggest people, if you want to make jewellery, use saw cut rings. If you're making chainmail, I'm not an expert on chainmail, that may well be suitable. And sometimes, if you just want to sort of play about with making things up, then machine cut rings can, because they are cheaper, they can be great just to practice with or play about with, and then use saw cut rings when you want something more special. Okay, well, what I'm going to do is show you how far we've got with this. it's got a tendency to want to curl up into a tube. It's just the way all the crystals are falling. So once it gets the ends on, that will tend to hold it spread apart a little bit better, and it won't want to do that quite so much, because it's really only the ends, as you can see, that are starting to sort of curl over. The middle looks okay, but that's when it gets long enough. When it gets older, it's going to be a bracelet. And what it's going to have on the end of it, I'll show you the clasp to go on the end. This is as I mentioned, sterling silver, so it's a class 4 rings, which will match with the 4 rings on the bracelet, and they just slides out like that. So that'll be on one side, this will be on the other, and obviously when you want to wear it, you wrap it around your wrist and slide those two together, and it's held in place with a magnet. Like that. Unfortunately, Samarix, I'm working on it. I really want to make that available this week, but I'm working really hard on it. I was almost ready for it to go live, and then, shall we say, one of the features I wanted to use wasn't available in payment wise. So I'm having to do a little bit of redesign work, but if you've, and I'll show you some pieces in a minute, but if you, in the meantime, if you are interested, you can give me drop me a private message, and I can send some photographs and things like that. But I'll just show some, since you mention it, I'll show some. I'm going to show off. I've got to show off, haven't I? Here's one we did earlier, Blue Peter style, for those that are in England and know what I'm talking about. So that was a this is a box weave. This one's stretchy, so the yellow is stretchy rings. That means it'll even go over, you know, as you can see. It kind of looks smaller than my hand, but I can actually put this on quite easily, and then you know, just straighten out the straightening out. But it's a little bit small for me, but you get the idea. Even I can put that on. I do have another one, but my wife's wearing it at the moment, which is a different design to that, but also stretchy. So this is one I did show a little bit earlier. This is a necklace, which I call Smarties. For those of you who are familiar with that, then with that confection, you'll know what Smarties are like. Lots of little tiny sweets which are multicoloured. That's where that one gets its name from. What have we got in here? This one at the moment, I haven't quite decided on a name for this one at the moment. This is also a necklace, but this is kind of like a sunlit lagoon, something like that. It sort of, what this reminds me of is sort of like a nice dark lagoon, if you like, blue water with light sparkling off it, you know, like the right sunlight, pink early morning sunlight. So it'll be named something like that. Now these rings are blue and pink. I know this camera's got a problem with blue and purple, but they're blue. What else do we have in here? Actually, that weave, by the way, is called helm. Why it's called helm, I don't know. Because maybe it's the weave that they used for the helm on armour. Helm being helmet thing, I guess. This is a Byzantine weave. So the zoom in a little bit, let me not zoom in, focus a little bit. There we go. So the Byzantine, this is made out of two colours here, but it's the way these rings fold back on themselves that make it called a Byzantine weave. This is actually in lavender and gold. Lavender, obviously a light purple. Aha. Now this one was done for Wimbledon actually. This was for my wife. So this one got called Wimbledon Wishes. She wanted this one because she wanted her favourite tennis player to win. So Wimbledon Wishes. Wimbledon actually, Wimbledon colours for the tennis is a purple and a green. Now it's not this purple and green, but it's purple and green. They're very specific Pantone colours, and these aren't. But this is called a half Persian, a 3-in-1 weave, which makes the shape of this is actually kind of V-shaped. So it's sort of like that. So this is kind of the apex, the top, but it can also sit the other way up, and then it's kind of V down. So it's kind of pointing downwards. So you can get sort of almost two looks with the same bracelet, but it does tend to obviously twist a little bit about on your wrist. And as I mentioned, sterling silver clasps. And this was kind of a little fun one. Now this is an anklet called Tickled Pink. For obvious reasons, it's pink. That's just a simple, what they call a 4-in-2 chain. So, which basically means each pair, the two, have 4 other rings with it, around it, so to speak. And this one has a rose gold. I say rose, it's filled gold, rose gold filled clasp. That's hard to say. So it gets that sort of red tinge to go with the pink of the anklet. And and these this one actually is called simply gold, but it's actually yellow. I know it looks gold, and the clasp at the end, which is a filled gold clasp, is almost the same colour, but this colour of ring is actually called yellow, not gold. A gold would be somewhat paler than this. So simply gold, and that's a 2-in-1, very similar to the other one, except instead of being all the links being doubled, here they're just single links. That's a simply bit, and as you can see, every one has 2 other rings in it. I've got a couple more in here. This one I showed earlier when I was talking about me, a silver one for myself. This is also a half Persian, but this one is what they call a 4-in-1. And what this does is it kind of makes it look 4-in-1. It kind of makes it look sort of rectangular. So, but it's kind of like a flattened X. If you imagine an X shape and then you sort of squashed it down, that's almost exactly what this is. And you cannot sort of open it up and in person, I'm not sure it'll show up on the camera, but if I just sort of squeeze it in the right way, it actually turns it into an X shape. But otherwise it normally sits in like a rectangular colour. Now this one is called Early Sunrise because what it reminds me of is like a very pale blue sky, and the sun's just coming up over the horizon, so you get that pale pink just above the horizon. And generally speaking, you sort of see the moon in the sky, so we've got a nice silver sterling silver clasp which represents the moon. Yes, I will, Sam Urix, but international shipping depends to where, shall we say, but it can be relatively speaking a little bit expensive, because they will go out as tracked and signed, well, tracked or signed for, depending on which country they go to, so that they actually arrive, shall we say, as opposed to vanishing in mid-post. And this one is another of the half Persian 3-in-1, a bit like where's it gone? A bit like the Wimbledon one. Okay, so there's two different sizes of rings, just to show you. Same weave, different ring sizes, so this one is called Morning Breaks. So it's meant to be even earlier, so there's sort of mist around, if you like, and it's still really sort of not really light, so it's really sort of sparse colours. And this has what they call a T-bar fastening on the end. So this is a loop and a bar, and if you've not seen these before, the way they fasten is you put the bar through the loop, so like that, and then you just let it settle back, and obviously, as you can see, the bar physically won't go back through that loop, so it holds it in place. To take it off, you have to sort of pull it through a little bit and post the end through the hole. So that's all I've got around to show. I've got little test pieces I can, just to show you. I often play about with rings, so as just to learn. So this, for example, is a piece. I was thinking about Christmas, so green and red Christmas trees and baubles, and that rich green and red that always seems to be around at Christmas. Now I was playing with this, and this particular set of rings that I've used here, I've learned by doing this, for example, it's not suitable for, or these rings aren't suitable for a bracelet, because you can see it's quite stiff, and it actually won't curve enough to work as a bracelet. This one, for example, as you can see, it's like water, it just flows. I can't get that one to do what this one will do, which is stand out. So it means that this, for example, might work as earrings or as pendants, on a necklace, for example. So depending from the necklace, as it's called, or made a little bit longer, for example, it could be like a little bag charm, that sort of thing. But as a bracelet, it doesn't work. As a necklace, it might, but it would be better with a different set of rings, which made it more fluid like the others. And I don't know. I play about with colours as well, so you can see what colours look like. Because sometimes when you look at something like you look at something like that, you obviously got a pale pink and a pale blue, but then this is a silver and blue, which sometimes you need to actually make a piece up just to see what the colours look like. Some colours go together surprisingly well, and others sort of go meh. I don't quite like those. And I also play with different sizes. So this, for example, oops, if I can get hold of, there we go. That is exactly the same weave as that, and this one is flexible. It's flexible enough for bracelets, necklaces, and things. But you can see it's a completely different size. It's kind of like granddaddy and baby. And I kind of like the little thin chains as well. So that's me experimenting, seeing how small I can go, and I think I can actually go smaller than that, but I haven't tried that yet. And then we have some other things like these two. and these are a different weave. They look rather like Byzantine, and they sort of are, but they're actually called Turkish round, whereas a Byzantine is effectively square. It's kind of got 4 sides, so you kind of use rings in pairs. These are made using rings in 3s, so it's got 6 sides, which makes it more round than the Byzantine is. So, and the box one that you saw me making earlier, this for example, is a box. If you do exactly the same thing but with, instead of 2 rings, 3 rings, you get what they call round mail, which looks like really like a tube almost, and that really is quite nice and round. And that's again an unusual one. I'm playing with colours again, silver and blue. Silver and blue seem to work really well together. And yeah, another version of this one. Again, different ring sizes and different colours, you know, pale blue and purple, just to see what it's like. And what have I got left? Oh, I've got. Sometimes you have disasters as well. This was meant to be a Turkish round. It looks like a. It just looks like a pile of rings. If the rings are the wrong size, you can weave them, but they look nothing like they're supposed to be. And sometimes they won't even stay in shape. These are staying in shape, but only just. And they sort of really doesn't look very good at all. If I'd extended this to maybe to a necklace length, whilst it wouldn't particularly look like Turkish round, it might still look like an interesting sort of mixed up necklace, but I don't think so too much. But it might be something I'd experiment with, that sort of thing. And very occasionally you have a Bob Ross moment, which is the happy accident. And this is a triple spiral, if I can get hold of it properly. They're quite hard to hold in shape as spirals, but it's 3 rings in a progressive spiral. This is a pale pink and a pale blue. I say a happy accident because what I was actually trying to do with that is create that, but I was doing it wrong. So I came out with a triple spiral. I learned something. I learned what not to do when I'm creating one of these, but how to make a triple spiral. But I also learned it's another one that sort of falls apart when you put it down. It's really hard to get it to keep its shape. Some things like the spirals like this really only keep the shape when there's tension on them. Anyway, I've shown off for tonight. The Byzantine actually is one of the easier ones to do, because after your first 6 rings, or as soon as you put ring 7 in, or 7 or 8, it holds its shape. So Byzantine is one of the easiest ones to do for that reason. When you start trying to do things like these, which are the half Persian, sorry, the half Persian, or even the full Persian, but the half Persian especially, this one is really awkward to get started with. I'm knocking crystals all over the place. It takes about 8 or 9 rings before you this thing is holding its shape enough for you to follow it. I think when I did this one, I probably started it about 3 times until eventually I managed to basically hold things in place long enough for me to add in enough rings that it actually held its own shape. So it takes about sort of that length, which is almost an inch, before this holds its own shape. But as I say, the Byzantine, 6 rings, well, as soon as you have the 7th, it holds everything in place, and then that's one of the easiest ones to start with, other than sort of things like the you know, the 4-in-2 of course is quite an easy one to start with, and it's quite decorative as well as is sort of the 2-in-1. But you sort of, you know, these two, if you really want a really simple chain to start with, Byzantine is probably the next easiest. Anyway, guys, that's it for tonight. I'm going to cool off, get a cold drink, rest my voice, which is still recovering from something, and I'll be back tomorrow night. So if there's anybody watching that isn't following, then I of course encourage you to do so that you'll get notifications and what have you. If you don't want to, that's okay. On the other hand, if you'd just like to be notified when I go live, I am on Twitter. The details will be on the end plate in a moment. They're also below the stream window. It is fairly simply though Zaraganart, or at Zaraganart. But if you'd just like to try and catch me on the next stream, I do stream usually 7 nights a week from 8 PM in the UK. So tomorrow night, 8 PM UK time, 1900 hours GMT. Or if you're not sure what time that is, take a look at your clock. Subtract about 2.5 hours, and that would be 8 PM in the UK. So that time tomorrow night. So thank you all for watching. It has been fun. I hope to see you all on the next stream. Bye bye.